kingdom in a mixed up world. You're in the sweet spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. You're in the sweet spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world.
Welcome to the Sweep Spot Podcast. My name is Lynn, your host, and Ken's my co-host. Ken, how's it going?
Oh, Lynn, it is going. It is going. I am so happy to be here. Looking forward to this episode of the podcast.
This is episode 357.
357. Well, that's some heavy firepower, Lynn.
It really is.
It's impressive that you've stuck through it all this time.
You too.
Yeah, well, mostly, yes. Who are we?
We are both former Disneyland Custodial cast members, and we talk Disneyland. We're also authors of the books Cleaning the Kingdom. We have 2 books out. You can get both of those on Amazon, and you can get them on Kindle also. And they're on audio. You can get them wherever audiobooks are found, Audible and all that. You can also get them signed on our website. Currently, right now, we only have the second book available. And we have one more of the USB drives left. By the time you hear this, it may be gone. But
That's right. You snooze, you lose.
yeah. So check that out. We've mentioned it every episode, so go and check that out. Also, we always say this at the end, but go ahead and leave us a review if you haven't done so yet on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, and we'll read that review on the air. But it really means a lot to us if you are able to do that. It really helps us out. Speaking of helping us out, we have a Patreon program where if you can help us in any way, we really appreciate it. And in that, you get for $5 or more a month, you get 1 bonus episode per month. And when it's working, you get to join us at the live chat, the current events.
Oh boy, yeah.
We're going to get that fixed. We're going to get it fixed. But the bonus episode is well worth it. So enough. So, and we just recorded that, and it's going to be really good. So definitely join and check that out. And speaking of that, we have a new Patreon I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
And it is Yinsid.R.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you
for your support. We appreciate it.
We really do. Thank you so much. So you can join Patreon by going to patreon.com and searching the Sweep Spot, or you can go to the sweepspot.com and look for the Patreon link.
And I think, it would be exciting to be part of the group that is supporting this podcast. Because what is this podcast, Lynn? It's the #1 Disneyland podcast. Hosted by 2 former Disneyland Custodial cast members. That's right.
That's right. Sorry, I was getting a little choked up over the words you were speaking here.
It's thanks to your hard work. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you. So also I wanted to mention that I am a travel planner for Concierge, who has been our sponsor for so many years. And you can now book with me directly. I can book trips to Disneyland, Walt Disney World, Disney Cruise Line, Alani, Adventures by Disney, and Disneyland Paris, Universal Hollywood, and Universal Orlando. I can even combine those. If you wanted to do like a Disney Cruise and Walt Disney World, we can do that together too.
Nice.
You can do all of them. If you wanted to do Disneyland, do them all. I can
That's
do
right.
that. No, but you get the personal touch of everything. I can book, help you with booking dining, give you suggestions. We don't just book the trip and say, have a good time. Call me next time you want to book. Let me do the heavy lifting, as Ken used to say.
That's right. I do it, folks, because it doesn't add any cost to your trip, and it just gives you some help.
That's right. So you can contact me directly at lbarron@concierge.com. That's LBARRON at concierge, CONCIEARS. Can't remember all that. You can just do the sweet spot at gmail.com, and I'll get it also there. Or there's like a number. If you find concierge online, you can call, but then they'll direct you. Like you just say, "Oh, I heard of, I want to work with Lynn or whatever."
Yeah.
Speaking of concierge, don't skip ahead. I wanted to mention this. Concierge next week, April 25th and 24th, 25th. I'm sorry. We're going to be having a meetup, like a retreat. And it's for concierge, all of us. We're going to be doing like training and stuff. And we wanted to invite you to follow along on Instagram. So if you're not following me on Instagram, you can search The Sweet Spot or Lynn Barron and follow along. But we're going to be using the hashtag for those 2 days. So it's hashtag concierge on location. That's all one word, concierge on location, CONCIEARS on location. And you'll get to see all the posts from all of us. And it should be fun. We're going to do like videos and photos and fun things. So follow along. That'd be, I think it'll be a good time. And then also I'll be doing a takeover on Howard Johnson Hojo Anaheim Instagram account on the 25th. And everything posted that day will be from me, and it should be fun. I'm going to do like, where are we in the park thing. So, all right, Ken, that's a lot of information, but who's our guest tonight?
Well, we have a returning guest. We have David Koenig joining us. And for those of you unfamiliar with David Koenig, he has authored many books about Disney and Disneyland and some other subjects too. But he's really the initiator of the genre in which we put our 2 books. So he really paved the way. So we tease him about that a lot when we see him, because he's the initiator. Right. So we call him the Godfather and all that sort of thing. But, he's an author and columnist and really knows his stuff about Disneyland. So we're going to have a nice chat with him.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's always a good time. Let's get right into it.
State Fair, the Disneyland State Fair's coming.
I know there's something special there for me.
Alaman left and don't you know your partner?
Come on, you're neck and neck, you're almost there. Boink, boink, boink.
We're baking pies and cooking up our chili.
With marching bands and great parades throughout the whole darn fair.
Oh, the State Fair at Disneyland is something special, something special.
Something special, really special.
Come and see.
It's a blast to the past as Disneyland's 1950s-style rock and roll celebration returns for its 2nd Smash season.
Disneyland!
And this year, the party's bigger and better than ever with sights, sounds, fads, and fun of that ever-popular era.
Blast to the past is fabulous!
And the entertainment never stops as some 150 performers burst into a musical extravaganza at the Main Street Hop.
Blast to the Past is right on.
On weekends and holidays, there's a dazzling new Blast to the Past parade filled with music and dancing.
Blast to the Past is the raddest thing that ever happened to Disneyland. Yeah, I love it.
And there's a beach party going on in the warm California sun for the whole family to enjoy.
So I thought we'd start off our conversation just talking about the comparisons of crowds now and kind of how they used to get crowds to Disneyland as compared to now, and it's a whole different ball game, you could say now, for many reasons, wouldn't you say?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
I would. It's
Okay.
yeah, because there used to be an off season at Disneyland, a very distinct off season,
Mhm.
with trade offs. But to me, I would give anything to have a day. It happens once every 10 years or something. You'll go in a day, whether it's weather or whatever causes it,
Right.
and they'll be fairly empty, and that is so rare now. And I used to love to go, and that was just such a favorite part of Disneyland, was having a day where there wasn't shoulder to shoulder people every day.
I was there last month. Now, granted, I live in Utah now, and it was our spring break, and I heard it was also Arizona's, and this was mid-March. It was raining the 2 days I was there. It rained both days, all day long. And I thought, oh, good, it's going to rain. It'll kind of, the crowds won't be as much. And no, that didn't affect it whatsoever.
Not with reservations.
Right,
People have their
right.
reservations and they'd better go.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, it used to be when I was an adolescent. Sometimes my schools would have an in-service day. They're making the teachers go through some sort of training or something.
Mhm.
So it was a weekday off that normally wouldn't. It's not a holiday, so it's like a Monday or whatever. Uh, and those were the days to go to Disneyland because it's not, very few other people automatically have that day off. So we'd go, and maybe it's open from 10 to 6, but and maybe there's a lot of things down for refurbishment, but the crowd, hardly any crowds.
Mhm.
And that was great. You could, get your fill. Sometimes you could just ride things over and over and over again because
Yeah.
there wasn't much of a wait, and that was the trade-off. It was like less entertainment, maybe they're not doing the parades, they're not doing fireworks, they're not, but yeah, it was just like, okay, don't have to wait. This is, of course, totally before Genie Plus and before Fast Pass and all those things.
For Disney management, I think for about the first 30 years, they just sort of accepted the low crowds. It's not like they didn't do anything, and certainly we can talk about from 55 to about 84,
Yeah.
the little things they did. But it wasn't until 85 that they said, this is unacceptable. Eisner said it should be busy out there every single day. And it took a little bit, but
Yeah.
they eventually got there.
And that was the year, of course, they went every day, because up until 85, you had closures in the off season. It might be closed Monday or Monday and Tuesday in some years,
Mhm.
but and they would trade off with Knott's. Like Knott's might be closed Wednesday and Thursday. So if you were a tourist who had driven across the country, Chevy Chase, family vacation, and oh no, Disneyland's closed. Well, we can go right over to Knott's, or or vice versa. But yeah, they said we're going to be open 365 days a year. Well, remember what we used to do is a lot of, they had private parties that were company based.
Mhm.
It's McDonnell Douglas night at Disneyland or whatever. And those would start, the park might close at 6 and the private party might start at 7:30 or 8 or whatever. And that was one way of getting more people in and keeping your cast working. But now, I mean, they still do those after hour. I forget what they're called. But they have those nights now where they, 9 to 1 special event, Sweethearts Night or
Mhm.
or Star Wars or whatever. But back then it was like, okay, every year our company's going to have a private party at Disneyland. Yeah, they took advantage of that.
Well, it obviously traces back to that. I mean, Disney had no idea they would need to do this, because when it opened in July of '55, and the massive crowds were there, and then later August with the heat, they got a hit. But I think at that point they probably figured, as long as as long as it's under 100 degrees and it's not a thunderstorm, we should do pretty well. And then that first week of September, just the crowds vanished, and rather quickly they said, what can we do to keep people coming? Because they realized they're not going to get their massive 20,000 people a day, but they had to figure out a way to keep the doors open, especially the people who were working there, like the musicians, who I'm sure a lot of those employees thought, if we can't get people in here, we don't have a job. So,
Yeah.
however they can keep busy. I know I talked to a lot of the folks who were there in the beginning, and like the shopkeepers trying to think of special events, like the pancake house having a pancake races down Main Street, and the Pendletons sponsored one time in the fall of 1955, sponsored a sheep shearing contest in Frontierland.
That's great.
And all sorts of things, whatever they could think to get a couple more people in just that day, not thinking, just very small potatoes, very small sites, but whatever they could do. And that carried on for many years, that type of thing.
Was
Yeah,
that
these
one?
out-
I was going
Go
to say,
ahead.
is that Walt added the circus? Is that one of the reasons, do you think?
Okay, well, I think it was mostly he wanted a circus. I think
Oh, okay.
he was determined to have a circus, because I mean, it's sort of, that's a separate case in that he just wanted a circus, and he loved plussing on top of plussing, and he got in a fight with the general manager of Disneyland, who didn't want the circus, because he goes, if you want a circus, I guess you could do it, but don't have it at Christmas time. That's the only time we know we're going to have guests. Why would you have it then of all? And Walt was like, no, you got to keep raising the bar. That's when we want to give them more entertainment, is when we know the people are going to be there. Yeah. And they're like, no, you got to use it to draw people, not to, and so it was a big philosophical difference. And after that, it was like, okay, no more circuses ever again.
Well, how many people can you convince to play hooky? I mean, I can remember we had my my uncle and aunt and my cousins come to town, and we decided we're going to go to Disneyland. This is when I was still a kid, and we're going to go to Disneyland on a school day. And my uncle was a surgeon, so my mother had him write a doctor's note saying, please excuse Ken for, he's got a doctor's appointment. Well, yeah, it's an appointment to go to Disneyland with my uncle, who's a doctor. But see, that's, when it's a one day thing, it's going to be driven by locals. And, what are you going to do to get people? Because it used to be basically from mid-June until Labor Day weekend, I mean, that was the busy summer season. And then, of course, the week of Christmas, the week of New Year's, those 2 weeks were really, really busy. Spring break might have been 2 weeks at the most back then. And then any other time, maybe if you had a 3-day holiday weekend or whatever. But other than that, it was just the weekends were kind of busy, but the weekdays were slow. I mean, go back and look at the attendance numbers. You had, for a long time, 12 million was the top for the year.
Right.
But now what are they doing? They're doing what, 17 million,
Yeah, something right around there. Yeah, I think it changed, and when they finally started getting into the new management in '84, it was like, okay, all you guys have been doing is basically a parade or a new ride or these one-off events to get people in for one day. We got to get people to, come every year or all through the year or come out for vacation. We need something that's, these gigantic park-wide celebrations that lasted, for months and months. And that was the first one was, I guess, the 30th anniversary, which would have been 85. And
Right.
and Eisner said, well, let's make everybody a winner. And I don't know if you guys remember the gift giver extraordinaire.
Yes.
Yeah. Were you guys working at the park back then, or?
No, I was.
You were a baby.
Yeah, I was still in like middle school, but
I wasn't working there until the 35th.
Okay.
Which was another let's bribe you to get you to come to Disneyland. But well, think about it, because you had New Fantasyland opened in 83,
right?
And they could, they promoted that, but it wasn't like, other than Pinocchio, you didn't, the attractions were new, they were renovated and upgraded and everything, but I mean, was it really going to compel people to come? But 1985, they weren't going to have anything really new. So of course you do 30th anniversary, gift giver extraordinaire. Come on down. We're giving away a car to, every 3 millionth guest or whatever it was, yeah, because you could do those promotions and to hold things over until you got the new attractions in, because it wasn't until September of 86 that they could advertise, oh, Captain EO, and then January of 87, oh, Star Tours, that and they did. It's not like they had these new hit animated films to draw people in, come meet Ariel. No, that wasn't happening yet. So you had to do something.
Then Eisner's idea though became, okay, if we could have this promotion that really gets people excited and coming in, isn't it best to have these promotions in the off season when we really need the help? So that became, the next big promotion was what was it? Was it the circus one?
Circus Fantasy,
in 86, was early 86, specifically planned to, for the same purpose, to get people excited, but specifically planned to come at the slowest time of the year. And it worked. I don't know. Did you guys visit back then?
Yes.
Yeah.
And people would not believe it today, what they had, between that and, of course, the other ones I'm sure you were going to mention, one of them was State Fair, but Circus Fantasy, my goodness, you had clowns walking around.
Yes, milling around. Yes.
You had carny games, right?
Yep.
What was there in the hub? There was what, the sphere, the globe of death, or
the globe of death. The wheel of destiny.
There was no Walt and Mickey. There was no partner statue.
No. And actually, that's one of the reasons why the statue came, is park management kept putting so many Ferris wheels and globes of deaths and wheels of destiny, in the middle, and giant dream machines in the middle of the hub that the Imagineers thought nobody could see the castle, and so they said let's build something permanent so that they can't do this anymore.
They had a high wire, act above Main Street, so I had these, wires going across Main Street.
Yes, I distinctly recall that, walking down Main Street, and there's guys in leotards walking from one side of, from right to east to west across the, overhead. And it was, talented performers. It was just kind of weird,
And the human missile over. And,
I don't remember the human.
I was going to mention that. That was either. I don't think that was State Fair. I do think that was Circus Fantasy. They shot a guy out of a cannon over the rivers of America.
Yeah.
Did they ever find him again?
Well, he was shot into some netting on the island. And it was just like, you got to be kidding me. This big old loud boom, and there goes this guy airborne over the river. And oh my gosh. And of course, they did have the parade too.
With live animals, live circus animals, tigers and elephants.
Yeah, we have a whole story about that in one of our books. Because you could imagine the elephants, the cleaning up after the elephants.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! So that was because just taking the whole park and doing an overlay, because you didn't even back then, you wouldn't even do that for Christmas. I mean, they had, Main Street was decorated, and they might have the Country Bear Christmas special. And you had a couple of Christmas trees at the castle moat, and of course the big one in Town Square. But you didn't. It wasn't a park wide overlay. But these were like, put stuff all over the park.
Right. But I mean, it was really odd, yet it was extremely popular. And so Eisner said, "Oh my gosh, you guys are bringing people into Disneyland in February. Now we got to get them to come in October."
Oh boy.
That's when State Fair came, as they started doing that in the fall. And so that was this months long overlay with the same kind of thing, only a little weirder. I thought people running around dressed up as broccoli and bottles of milk, and they had the State Fair parade, but they also was because the railroad was down for Splash Mountain construction, they at one of those times they had a Ferris wheel right there at the Main Street train station because they didn't need the tracks or anything else. So they had a Ferris wheel there. The very thing that, of course, they built Disneyland to get away from, and you're kind of replicating it, but it's a temporary basis, Yeah, they actually had two Ferris wheels, I think, if I'm right. One at the hub, and then one right at the train station, which is so you couldn't get away from it.
There's some great stuff. I have some notes here. They had lumberjacks on the Rivers of America, where they
log
had,
rolling,
log rolling. They had axe throwing, tree climbing. Yeah.
And what did they have? They had the pig races at the
ranch,
at the Big Thunder Ranch.
Yeah, pig races.
And that was the first time I remember. Now there was a cast member, Joe, that was the first time I saw Buford, is he was kind of the MC of the pig races. And they had actual pig races, but then what they did afterwards is after the pigs raced, they said, well, we're going to reenact it for those of you, it went by too fast for you. And they had the three little pigs come out and reenact the race. But that was the first time I remember the Buford character, which stuck around, and he was there when Splash Mountain opened and everything. But the Big Thunder Ranch, where of course Galaxy's Edge is now. But
and I think that's where Billy Hill and the Hillbillies came from. I think they used to came as part of the pig races and stuck around.
Yeah, they were called the Barley Boys back then.
Oh, the Barley Boys, right?
Yeah. I did some research here. Yeah.
Well done.
That act is still going. There's a form of that act still going at Knott's now.
Yes.
Crazy Kirk and the Hillbillies.
Yes.
But
keep it going. It all began at State Fair.
So you had Circus Fantasy State Fair.
Oh, there's more for State Fair. So they had.
Oh, go ahead.
They had the VMX biking at Videopolis.
Oh yeah, they called them the Wizards of Rad.
Yep, you're right. Yeah.
I'd see my memory. I can remember
memory.
that. I can't remember where I put my keys, but I can.
They had a high dive tank set up in Small World areas called Daredevil Diving Team.
Oh my gosh!
People think we're making this up. It's true.
I remember these things. I
know.
remember because we were annual pass holders back then, and we'd come in and see these things. Oh my!
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
The Wizards of Rad. Oh my gosh!
Now, was it after that? Then they had Blast to the Past. I don't know if you guys remember that. Promotion.
Well, some of these promotions were more than 1 year. Some of them I think ran twice.
Blast to the Past did at least twice, I think.
And Blast of the Past, they had a big giant jukebox in the plaza in the middle of the hub.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have live singing acts up there, but they also did things though, like they had acts that were associated with like the 1950s and 60s back at the Videopolis stage. I remember seeing Chubby Checker back there.
Oh wow! Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
And what they had. I don't know if it was a parade or a cavalcade or something that was, you know,
Yeah, they had a
oh,
parade. Yeah.
and they had classic cars like parked in town. Like there was one in town square, and there was a contest to guess how many whatever was stuffed inside the car. I forget what, I don't know if it was frisbees or what it was. There was, guess how many of these items are in the car, and then if you want to be informed of the winners, give us your info, we'll put you on a mailing list. And the list I got was a little leaflet, and it had like the first initial and last name of the people who won, but it's like you have no idea if this is real or what,
That's funny.
Yeah, I do. My two clearest memories of those were the both revolved around the parade, which I remember as being extremely extensive and very exciting. People I remember I think I was a teenager at the time, and people were very, very, very excited as that parade came down. And if I recall correctly, it was a parade. It may have been the first time they did this, and they would do it later with like light magic and stuff, where it would go a little bit and it would stop and it would put on this sort of like extended 5-minute long show or like a sock hop or a hula hoop twirl or something like that. I remember that. And then the other thing I remember is they had various floats and characters running along. And I do distinctly remember that the villains characters were in like motorized recliners. And I don't remember if they were chasing the other, but I just have this distinct memory of them like being all in lazy boys driving up and down Main Street. And why I can't remember, but that's burned into my memory.
Oh my gosh. Funny. Well, you have to remember how strong was, you had 1950s nostalgia.
Big.
Because in the late 80s, of course, that was only 30 years prior or whatever. So of course all the grown-ups of the day could remember that. And that was these temporary overlays where it might not fit thematically with what was going on, but it
didn't matter. It worked. I also remember it was probably a year or two after that, Party Gras. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Yeah.
It was a big, more than a parade, and people were throwing beads all over the place. And that was another you had these giant floats, if I remember correctly, these giant balloons that went, which I think they reused that idea several times for several other events. But that was another thing that really drove the crowds and really started building up.
That was part of the 35th anniversary in 1990.
35th, okay.
Yeah, wow. It was again. We're going to do a gift giving thing where this time they put that slot machine in the middle. Of course, they didn't call it a slot machine, but that's what it looked like.
What it was, I think.
It was a slot machine in the middle of the hub again. I think that was the final straw where they're like,
Dream Machine.
Blaine Gibson, can you sculpt us a partner statue so we can prevent that? Yeah, that was. I used to watch that because somebody pointed out to me that, because what would happen is somebody would go up there, there'd be an MC. This person had gotten a ticket at the entrance that said, you get a chance to drink from the fire hose. No, it's, you get a chance to pull on the Dream Machine lever. So the person would go up and they'd pull the lever, and there would be this, music and light thing rotating around the machine. And, there's different prizes you can see on them. And it's wherever the lights stop when the music ends is which prize you can get. I think the simplest one was like a Mickey Mouse plush doll. And the next one up was a couple of VHS tapes. One was like Alice in Wonderland, and I forget what the other one was. But the ultimate prize was a Geo car. It was a Geo, for those of you who don't know, was a really inexpensive GM brand. But the thing is, somebody pointed out to me, if you watch the pattern of the lights, whichever light flashes on the beat is the prize they're winning. And if you look at what happened when they pull the lever, the ticket comes out saying what they've won, and the MC grabs it. The MC already knows what they're going to win before the music stops. and it was darned if they weren't right. I would sit there and, I would say, I would predict which prize the person was going to win based on my knowledge of this. And I would always, I'd be right. So if somebody else was unfamiliar with it, it's like, oh, they're going to win the plush doll, or hey, they're going to win, I forget what the other prizes were. Maybe, I don't know if either one of you have that information handy, but
I don't remember. No.
That was a while back, but you cracked the code. That's amazing. I don't know if you guys ever heard, but there was another promotion, either I guess a couple years before, a couple years after, built into the certain number of guests. It must have been the 30th anniversary, because it was like every 30th guest would win a prize, and every so often it would be a big prize. And there was this couple that sort of timed it out, and they would know which turnstile to go through at the right time, and they were winning all these big prizes.
Wow.
And Disney caught on to them and made them stop, rigging the system, and they filed, so they lost their lawsuit, but they ended up filing suit that Disney was discriminating by preventing them from carrying out their nefarious scheme of, of like you said, figuring out how the system worked and trying to take advantage of it.
And of course, how would you know that? Because you wrote that book.
Oh, that book. Yeah. I've heard of it. Yes. Very good.
Do you mention that book? Go ahead, mention it right now.
Oh, okay. It's a lead-in. I get it. Well, that was probably from Mouse Tales, a behind-the-ears look at Disneyland.
You also wrote the book with the lawsuits.
Yeah, there was another one that came later called "The People versus Disneyland," all about all the lawsuits and lawyers, and how they ruined everything, but yet kept us alive. So I guess it's a fair trade-off.
It was it was interesting because the one for the 35th anniversary with giving away by the way, Geo, it was kind of interesting because of course you had 5 years before you had a chance to win a much better vehicle 5 years before.
Pontiac Firebird.
Yeah, but for the winning the Geo car, it wasn't, if you asked them, they would say, oh, the odds are whatever, but they would only give away one car a day.
Right.
And they knew ahead of time about what time of day it was going to be given away. About
4 o'clock every afternoon, wasn't that about?
Well, you would see the suit, we'd call them suits. You'd see the suits come out, and they'd be waiting for the next person to pull the lever because they were going to win the car. And another tell for the car, because the car was embedded in the machine and the top of the machine would rise up and there was the car. The moment they pulled the lever, you would hear the hydraulics, so you knew, okay, they're winning the car. So you knew before they did, if you knew the secrets, and boom, oh, you've won a brand new car. But that was it. If one person won that day, nobody else is going to win, unless it was the press event, because they wanted to demonstrate it for the press. They had it more than once those days. So I don't know how that squares with all the laws or anything like that, but yeah.
Now, do you know, are those hydraulics still there? Could one day, like Walt and Mickey rise and there's like standing on top of a Pontiac Firebird? Is that a possibility?
I'd like to think there's still a Geo Metro that's buried underneath Walt Disney.
That'd be great.
What it is it lifts up and it's that car that Elon Musk sent out into space or whatever.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
It's a big magic trick.
Yeah. That's under the Astro Orbiter, I think, is what that would be.
But those things worked. I mean, they would, it's like, hey, let's go to Disneyland because they've got, Party Gras, or the Party Gras parade had 6 inflatable character floats.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember those because once they got backstage, they would turn off the inflation, and then it looked really weird if you saw all deflated. But really tall. The promotion was, hey, it's Disneyland. It's so big. It's Disneyland big, and they couldn't run the Skyway when they were doing this parade because the floats were that tall.
Oh wow.
But one of them was Roger Rabbit, because back then Roger Rabbit was going to be the next Mickey Mouse. You had a Mickey float, a Minnie float, and whichever other character, Goofy, I don't know, Donald, Pluto, but you know, one of the six was Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, I'd always heard that Roger Rabbit. Somebody told me, I don't know if this is true, but I'll say it anyway. Somebody told me that Michael Eisner viewed Roger Rabbit as his Mickey Mouse, so that his first years he was, trying to push Roger Rabbit everywhere, so that it was like his identifying character. So,
and now you don't see him except in the attraction.
No,
it's nowhere. Because Disney didn't know. Disney shared ownership.
Yes,
of the character. So
now in the last 5-10 years, I don't know, through heightened analytics or devious variable pricing or what it is, having special sales, is they have turned Disneyland into a 365-day a year operation. They don't need these temporary things anymore.
No,
it's interesting.
And yet they still do, like with California Adventure, they do those festivals, right? Food and wine, and Lunar New Year.
I said Disneyland didn't need the help. I didn't say about.
Oh, I see. You're saying Disneyland
True.
Park, but really, wasn't that the main goal of turning it into a resort? Is you're turning it into a multi-day destination. Hopefully, the guests will stay in your hotel rooms. They'll visit both of your parks, and it's more of a thing that you do. You take a week off and go there, as opposed to road trip day.
Wow.
And now it's like, where has the off season gone? It's not. There is no off season anymore. It's. I mean, the 2 weeks at the end of the year are still the very, very, very on season. It's like, we're gonna block out all our magic keys because it's too busy. Yeah.
Now, from what I understand, since they blocked out all their annual pass holders at this last holiday season, the holiday season was not quite as crowded as it could have been.
Yeah, that
must have been much more pleasant for people who were, if it's their only trip once every 5 years or whatever, it must have been much more pleasant for them.
Yeah, well, except for, I'm sure the price was whatever the maximum peak season price was, and all the people in there were 1-day tickets. So it was a different type of thing.
Some of the pass holders were even buying tickets, so that Disney won twice on that.
Yeah.
Well, boy, you are really desperate to go if you're an annual pass holder who's blocked out for 1 week, and then you have to buy the extra days for a week.
Yeah.
Or go into withdrawals, I guess.
I was thinking of a crude joke. I won't say it, but
okay, all right, we'll take that off the
air. Yes, if you pay extra, people, and I'll tell you the crude joke. No, but yeah, that's wow. Yeah, I could totally see that though. If you are so hung up on, I like spending New Year's Eve at Disneyland or whatever, or Christmas Day. I could totally see that, where it's like, right. Well, I'll buy a ticket,
The tradition, we go on Christmas Day or whatever. Yeah.
That does make sense when you put it that way. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
And other local attractions are usually closed. Like, I'm pretty sure Knott's is closed on Christmas Day. And I don't know about Universal, but it's one of those things. Disneyland is one of the businesses that's open, every day of the year. So,
Yep.
And, but Disney animated movies and Marvel and Pixar and Lucas and all this stuff. So you got these at the resort. It's very popular. The crowds are still there. The prices have gone up, but you're still bringing in these people. And I don't see it stopping as long as they don't raise the prices up to some sort of tipping point that just causes a collapse.
I don't think they'll cause a collapse, but I mean, at some point it will come down, because for 99% of people, there is an individual tipping point for everyone. I know so many people who used to be annual pass holders and then turned into occasional visitors, and are now like not visitors at all. because with the reservations and especially with the cost, and then you get there and you need Genie Plus or whatever, it's just the value to them is not there. Even if they had the money, maybe they might not use it in that way
Right.
because they know Disneyland is a different place, or at least visiting as being a different experience. I mean, these are people who spent $99 for their first annual pass, and now $99 won't get you in the door for one day for one person. And before you could do everything, and it included parking, and now you could argue whether it's worth it or not, but to most people there's a limit to everything. And I think each year as it keeps going up without any relief of crowds, it's, if anything, it seems to be getting more uncomfortable all the time, that I think you lose, whether it's you lose a person a day or 100 person a day, or you outprice 1,000 people a day. You're losing people every day. And you just have to, if you're Disney, have to hope that this you keep bringing in new ones, or at least the big money ones stay with you as you go higher and higher and higher. And no matter how much Disney is in your blood, most people have if they made an annual pass, the cheapest one was $10,000 a person. All of a sudden, you'd have a lot of people who were still there, but you'd naturally lose a fair amount too.
Yeah.
And they've made it harder for cast members to take people in too. I mean, it's not. It used to be very simple, and now it's not as easy, and that can make a difference because if you have just a certain number of cast members who do it on a regular basis, then that adds to the crowds, and so you cut back on that,
Yeah, as well, it may be related to trying to control the crowds in that way, but also because they figure if we're going to reach capacity, because we've set our arbitrary capacity at 60,000 or whatever the number is, for every cast member or their guest that comes in, that's one fewer ticket we can sell to somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true, especially now with reservations. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
We'd rather the reservations all be people who are going to pay full price to get in.
Yep.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's true. I mean, the one-time guest is going to be spending more per capita than over the course of the year. The key holders do spend a lot of money. The average key holder does spend money over the course of the year, but it's not as much per visit as
Sure.
That's makes a difference. So that's what they talk about. What did the unfortunate phrasing that was used, the mix of the undesirable mix or something. I forget what the phrasing was.
I think that's the term. Yeah, the undesirable. Yeah, because I know some friends, some annual pass holders who would go, "We're undesirables."
I think some people made up shirts that
stickers,
undesirable, unfavorable or undesirable or
unfavorable. Yeah, I remember seeing T-shirts at the last expo. It's funny.
Oh my god!
We should have sold those at our booth. We could have sold some undesirable T-shirts. That would have been good.
Great. Yeah, we would have sold.
What about a third? Out, but that's okay.
What about a third park? What would that do to everything?
That would help so much. And I don't. I mean, as a guest, it would help so much. As a company, I understand why they're slow rolling it. It's because it would immediately add 20 to 40,000 person capacity for guests. Therefore, what you're selling now is not quite as rare and as restricted.
Yeah,
which is good for a guest, but bad if you're the person selling it. And as well, they'd have to spend literally billions of dollars to build it, and then who knows how much to staff it.
Just finding enough people to staff it.
Oh, that's a good point as well.
You have to do that, and
quality people.
It just came to mind remember what happened in 1996. You talk about getting crowds in. They said, well, the Main Street Electrical Parade is glowing away forever. And 1996 saw the attendance jump from 12 million for the year to 15 million, just because, well, it wasn't just because, but Indiana Jones was still new and all that stuff. But they said, we're going to make, this is the farewell season of the Main Street Electrical Parade. And they ended up having to extend the run because it was so popular. That was probably one of the most successful ways of getting people in. And then, of course, we all know that the electrical parade was never seen again after that.
Yes. Well, I think they learned a valuable lesson is if you can identify a piece of your entertainment that people just love, that they identify with their childhood, that they can't live without, kill it.
Yeah. If they ever get really desperate, it'll be like, all right, it's the farewell season for the Pirates of the Caribbean. It's like, no. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Well, with Splash Mountain closing at end of May, I bet you'll see a lot more people going on that attraction.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, I'll bet it'd be, especially as you get closer, probably those lines will be many hours long.
Oh, yeah.
If it ever stops raining, especially.
True.
It'll be interesting to see what happens on the last day. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people waiting, and because I think that happened at the Magic Kingdom, is there were people say, I want to be the last person, and go, no, I want to be the last person. Well, I'm going to wait around and be the last person, and they just
yeah. How'd that work out? It would just go, oh no, you can go in front of me. You can go in front of me. What would they do?
Because the normal policy is, we cut off the line at park closing. If you're in line, then you can stay in line. But on something like that, you have to have a certain limit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's true. Interesting.
Yeah.
So there's no more Jack Lindquist to come up with these promotions anymore. Things are a lot different than in Jack Lindquist's day, and date night at Disneyland and all that sort of thing that they would do to get the people to come in the evenings. And it's changed over the years. I mean, it really has. It's the place has grown, and you have more people that are there for multiple days as opposed to just for the day. It's really made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
It has. I also, as much as I love Jack Lindquist, I'll always remember his final promotion before sailing off was it Disney Afternoon Live or something like that?
Yeah.
Did not go out on a high note.
Oh boy, I still have the nightmares.
Yes.
Ooh, Afternoon Avenue. Ooh.
Oh, there you go. That was. I just remember the plywood cutouts of all these characters that I'd never seen before in my life.
Really quick. My 5-year luncheon, they showed a video of, this is what as 5-year luncheon as a cast member, let me stress that. It was actually held in Aladdin's Oasis, believe it or not. And they ran this video that showed what would happen the last 5 years. And when Afternoon Avenue was shown on the screen, you could hear all the cast members groaning. Oh. And our fearless president at the time, Paul Pressler, got up and said, wow, you guys are really hard on yourselves. And we all wanted to say, hey, that wasn't our idea.
Had nothing to do with that.
But, but you hear people younger than us had really fond memories of Afternoon Avenue. So you never know. I mean, when you're a little kid, that sort of thing is like, oh, this is so neat. As an adult, it's like, oh, this is so garish, So yeah, it's just perspective.
Yeah, no, it's the same with just the design for a kid, like the Pop Century Hotel or the All-Star Hotels or something, which to me are these gigantic, scary looking, ugly hotels. But it's not meant for me. It's meant for a little kid who goes, wow, Woody's head is the size of the Matterhorn.
Yeah,
that's good for them.
That's
nice.
Well, David, thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, and tell us more about your books.
Oh,
please.
Well, yeah. Well, I've got absolutely, yeah. mouse tales and more mouse tales about wacky stories of behind the scenes at Disneyland. Mouse Under Glass about the making of their animated features. People versus Disneyland, as we mentioned. Reality Land about the real history of Walt Disney World. And my latest Disney book was The 55ers, about a big coffee table book about all the original employees who worked at Disneyland. It was a very different place, and they had very different employees, very different demands. And then my most latest project is been about not about Disney, but about the television show Columbo. I did a book
and just one more thing, David.
Yeah.
Just one more thing. Let me get this. Let me make sure I have this right.
Good, man. You're good. Yeah. So that shooting Columbo came out. It's doing really well. And right now, what I'm doing is, for the past several months, working on the show is coming out on Blu-ray this fall. So I've been doing a lot of the audio commentaries for the show. So that's keeping me busy now.
And folks, these if you've somehow never seen any of these books, these are real books. Okay, it's not like one of those, books about Disneyland where it's just real fluff and it's just one little blurb per page, and you turn the page and it's another little blurb per page. No, these are real substantial books. So, obviously they take a lot of work and research and that sort of thing. So. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ken. Yeah, I try to guarantee at least 4 blurbs per page. That's my quote.
No, these are substantial resources. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good.
Thank
Well, it's
you
great
again.
to be back with you guys. I appreciate it, and I hope we can do it again as soon as possible.
For sure. Okay, what an episode.
Yeah, David is somebody that when we see him in person, I can just talk to forever, and same goes for when we got a microphone up to his mouth and getting him on the record. So, I'm honored to have been quoted and cited in some of his books.
Yeah, that's right.
That still blows my mind. But yeah, that was I like talking with him. So, and I hope you guys enjoyed listening to it. So, thank you for your ongoing support of this podcast.
Yeah. So if you'd like to leave a review, again, go to Apple Podcasts or iTunes. We'd love to hear from you too. You can contact us at thesweetspot@gmail.com, or I think there's a way you can contact us at our website, thesweetspot.com. Is also another way. So thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll talk with you next time.